The motion sensor pinged at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday night in late June. Marcus Rivera, a 42-year-old cybersecurity consultant who'd spent 15 years teaching corporations how to catch digital intruders, now watched three figures scale his privacy fence in real time. His phone screen illuminated his face in the darkness of his home office, casting shadows across features tight with controlled fury. 8 weeks. 8 weeks of finding beer bottles floating in his pool, of scrubbing mysterious stains off his deck furniture, of discovering his custom LED pool lights ripped out and stolen. 8 weeks of police reports filed and ignored, of neighbors shrugging sympathetically but offering no help. But tonight was different. Tonight, Marcus wasn't calling anyone. Tonight, the man who'd built a career tracking down hackers and corporate spies was about to show three entitled teenagers what happened when you invaded the wrong person's property. And what they didn't know was that their little pool parties were about to become the most viral content their town had seen in years. Before we dive into how Marcus turned his backyard into a lesson these kids would never forget. If you love stories where entitled people finally face real consequences and justice gets served with a side of internet fame, hit that like button and subscribe. You're going to want to see how this unfolds. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that turned a patient man into a calculating strategist, the confrontation where technology met old-fashioned accountability, and the resolution that proved sometimes the best revenge is public humiliation delivered with surgical precision. The first part takes you inside Marcus's world as his sanctuary became a crime scene. You'll feel the mounting rage of a man who'd worked his entire life to build something beautiful, only to watch entitled strangers destroy it night after night. You'll witness his attempts to handle things the right way, the system's complete failure to protect him, and the exact moment when he stopped asking for permission and started planning retribution. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was about respect, boundaries, and what happens when someone mistakes patience for weakness. The second part brings you to the confrontation itself, where Marcus's professional skills collided with teenage arrogance in the most spectacular way. You'll see the trap spring shut, watch confidence drain from young faces as they realized they'd been completely outmaneuvered, and witness the moment when 3 kids understood that the quiet guy next door was actually the most dangerous person they'd ever crossed. The power shift was absolute, immediate, and completely merciless. The third part delivers the resolution that made this story legendary in their community. You'll discover how punishment evolved beyond Marcus's original plan, how the internet transformed private justice into public spectacle, and how consequences rippled through multiple families in ways no one expected. This is where justice doesn't just get served, it gets documented, shared, and turned into a cautionary tale that spread through their entire town like wildfire. Here's exactly how it happened. Marcus Rivera had purchased the modest 3-bedroom house in the suburban Philadelphia neighborhood of Maple Ridge 4 years earlier, shortly after his divorce. The backyard had sold him instantly, a 1/4 acre of privacy with mature oak trees forming a natural canopy, perfect for the saltwater infinity pool he'd designed himself. He'd spent $47,000 and 6 months of weekends creating his personal oasis, complete with automated temperature controls, color-changing LED lights, and a deck built from Brazilian IPE wood that would last decades. As a cybersecurity consultant who worked primarily from home, often pulling 16-hour days managing crisis responses for Fortune 500 clients, that pool was his therapy, his refuge, the place where he decompressed after digital warfare. The first incident happened on May 3rd, a warm Thursday evening. Marcus had been in back-to-back video conferences until midnight, finally dragging himself to bed at 1 in the morning. When he stepped outside the next morning with his coffee, he found his pool gate hanging open, muddy footprints across his pristine deck, and 3 empty White Claw cans floating in the water. He'd stood there in his bathrobe, coffee growing cold in his hand, trying to process the violation. The fence was 6 feet tall, with a locked gate. Someone had climbed over. Someone had treated his property like a public park. He'd called the non-emergency police line, filed a report, been told they'd increase patrols. Then he'd spent 4 hours cleaning, testing the water chemistry thrown off by whatever had been spilled, and installing a $200 motion-activated floodlight. 3 weeks later, it happened again. Marcus was pulling an all-nighter, managing a ransomware incident for a healthcare client when his phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m. The new camera system he'd installed captured everything in crystalline 4K clarity. 3 figures, 2 male and 1 female, all appearing to be teenagers, vaulting his fence with practiced ease. They'd brought a Bluetooth speaker this time, music thumping as they cannonballed into his pool wearing street clothes. He'd watched them for 20 minutes, recording everything before calling 911. By the time police arrived 45 minutes later, the kids were long gone. The responding officer, a bored-looking veteran named Hutchins, had taken a cursory look at the footage, written down a case number, and told Marcus that unless he could identify the perpetrators, there wasn't much they could do. Teenagers being teenagers, Hutchins had said with a shrug. Install better locks. Marcus had bitten back his response, watching the taillights disappear. The third incident was the breaking point. June 14th, a Friday night. Marcus had taken a rare evening off, ordering takeout and settling in to watch a movie. At 10:37 p.m., his motion alerts started firing. This time there were 4 of them. This time they'd brought friends. He'd watched through his cameras as they not only used his pool but ripped out 2 of his custom LED light fixtures, $340 each, attempting to steal them. When the wiring proved too difficult, they'd simply destroyed them out of frustration, leaving the shattered components floating in the water. One of the males had urinated on his deck furniture. The female had carved something into his wooden gate with a key. When Marcus had stormed outside, they'd scattered like roaches, but not before one of them had turned back and shouted, "What are you gonna do, old man? Call the cops? They don't care." That voice, that mocking, entitled voice echoed in Marcus's head for the next 2 days. He'd filed another police report. Nothing happened. He'd posted in the neighborhood Facebook group asking if anyone recognized the footage. Sympathetic comments, no useful information. He'd even tried to confront them himself the next time, standing in his yard at midnight like a sentry, only to hear laughter from somewhere beyond his fence and taunting shouts, "Pool's closed, loser!" His neighbors, mostly elderly couples or young families with small children, offered sympathy, but nothing substantive. The general consensus seemed to be that this was just something you had to endure. The cost of having a nice pool in a neighborhood adjacent to the high school. But Marcus hadn't spent 15 years hunting sophisticated cyber criminals to be outsmarted by teenagers. He stopped calling police. He stopped posting online. Instead, he did what he did best. He investigated. He spent the next 2 weeks becoming a ghost, analyzing every frame of footage, tracking patterns, identifying distinguishing features. The tallest male had a distinctive tattoo on his left shoulder, a scorpion. The female wore a varsity jacket with partial letters visible, GL Re, Eagle Ridge. Maple Ridge? The shortest male had arrived on a skateboard with custom artwork. Marcus began cross-referencing his footage timestamps with school schedules, with traffic patterns, with social media posts from Maple Ridge High School accounts. He discovered that several students had posted photos at parties with pools in the background, not his pool, but the same group of people. He identified hashtags, tagged locations, connected dots. Within 10 days, Marcus knew everything. If they wanted to play games, they were about to learn that they'd challenged someone who got paid 6 figures to find people who didn't want to be found. And on June 28th, a warm Wednesday evening, everything was finally ready. Marcus sat in his darkened office, watching his cameras, waiting with the patience of a spider watching flies approach its web. The motion alerts fired at 11:52 p.m., right on schedule. 3 figures vaulted his fence. The core group, back for another visit. Marcus watched them settle around his pool, cracking open beers, laughing about something on one of their phones. He gave them exactly 8 minutes. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they owned the place. Then he stepped through his back door, flipping on every exterior light simultaneously. The backyard erupted in brightness, 800 watts of LED illumination turning night to day. All 3 teenagers froze, caught like deer in headlights. "Evening, Brandon," Marcus said calmly, descending his deck steps with measured precision. "Kayla, Tyler, hope you're enjoying yourselves." The tallest one, Brandon Hutchins, 17 years old, recovered first, his face twisting into practiced defiance. "We don't have to tell you shit. This is just trespassing. Cops already said they won't do anything." Marcus smiled. Brandon Michael Hutchins, 2847 Oakmont Drive. Son of Officer Derek Hutchins and registered nurse Patricia Hutchins. Senior at Maple Ridge High. Quarterback, though your stats this past season were pretty rough. 4 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Planning to walk on at Westchester University next fall, assuming your criminal record doesn't interfere with that. The color drained from Brandon's face. Tyler, the shorter one with the skateboard, tried to bolt for the fence. Marcus held up his phone, and the teenager stopped as if yanked by an invisible leash. "Tyler James Morrison," Marcus continued, his voice conversational but edged with steel. 16 years old. 1534 Birch Street. Your parents are James Morrison, assistant principal at Jefferson Middle School, and Linda Morrison, who manages the branch of Wells Fargo on Main Street. You were arrested for shoplifting last year. Charges dropped thanks to Daddy's position and your agreement to counseling. I'm guessing they don't know about your new hobby." Kayla, who'd been silent until now, found her voice. It came out small, frightened. "How do you know all this?" "Kayla Elizabeth Warren, 15 years old, which makes you the only minor here. Interesting. 3211 Sycamore Court. Your mom, Denise, is a paralegal at Peterson & Associates downtown. Your dad, Michael, manages the Toyota dealership out on Route 30. You're a sophomore honor roll volleyball captain. Scholarship potential. Had scholarship potential." Marcus let that sink in. "I know all this because I'm a cybersecurity consultant. Finding people who don't want to be found is literally what I do for a living. You 3 have been coming here for 8 weeks. I have 52 hours of 4K video footage. I have your faces, your voices, your DNA on every beer can you've left behind. I know your schedules, your friends, your social media accounts, including the photos Tyler posted from here 2 weeks ago that he thought he deleted." The silence that followed was profound. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Kayla had started crying quietly. Brandon's defiance had evaporated entirely, replaced by dawning horror. Tyler looked like he might vomit. "Here's what happens next," Marcus said, pulling up his phone and showing them his screen. "I have an email queued to send in exactly—" He checked his watch. 4 minutes. "It's addressed to your parents, the school principal, the chief of police, and about 40 local reporters I've compiled into a contact list. Attached to that email is a comprehensive report documenting 8 weeks of trespassing, property destruction totaling $4,200 in damages, theft, and vandalism. I have video, photos, forensic analysis, and a timeline so detailed it could be used as evidence in court. Because guess what? I am taking you to court. Civil court, where the burden of proof is much lower, and your futures get absolutely destroyed by judgment liens before you've even started your adult lives." "We'll tell them you're lying," Brandon tried, but his voice cracked. "With what proof?" "I have video of you urinating on my property, Brandon. Crystal clear 4K footage. You really want that played in a courtroom? In front of your father? Want that forwarded to Westchester's admissions office? Marcus turned to Kayla. And you, honor student, think that scholarship committee will be impressed by footage of you helping destroy $340 light fixtures? Think your mom's law firm will love having a paralegal whose daughter is a viral criminal? Viral? Tyler whispered. Marcus nodded. There's a second email. This one goes to Viral Hog, Inside Edition, Ring Camera's social media team, and about 15 TikTok accounts that specialize in entitled people getting consequences. Your faces, your names, your actions. I've already drafted the captions. Entitled teens thought they owned strangers' pool. Watch what happens next. You'll be famous. Just not the kind of famous you want. What do you want? Kayla asked through tears. Option 1. I send both emails in 3 minutes. Your lives become a cautionary tale. Option 2. You fix everything you've broken. You pay for everything you've stolen or destroyed. And you never come within 500 feet of my property again. We don't have $4,200, Tyler said desperately. Then you'll work it off. My deck needs restaining. 40 hours of labor. My fence needs repair, 20 hours. My pool needs professional cleaning and chemical rebalancing. You'll pay for that in cash by selling whatever you need to sell. You have 72 hours to provide me with a payment plan and begin work. Miss the deadline by 1 minute, and both emails send automatically. Try to run? Emails send. Try to retaliate? I have dead man switches you can't imagine. I've spent 2 weeks building a case that would make prosecutors weep with joy. How do we know you won't send them anyway? Brandon asked. Marcus met his eyes. Because unlike you three, I actually keep my word. You complete the terms, you stay away, and this ends. You've been treating me like I'm powerless, like I'm some victim you can abuse without consequences. That ends tonight. You're going to learn that actions have consequences, and you're going to learn it the hard way. He gestured toward the fence. Now get out. You have 72 hours. The clock starts now. They scrambled for the fence like their lives depended on it, because in a very real sense, they did. Marcus watched them disappear into the night, then checked his phone with a small smile. He'd been recording the entire confrontation. Naturally, insurance. He poured himself a bourbon, sat on his deck, and waited to see if they were smart enough to take the deal. They showed up at 7 a.m. Saturday morning, all three of them hollow-eyed and terrified. They'd clearly spent the night confessing to their parents. Brandon arrived first, carrying painting supplies and wearing old clothes. His father, Officer Derek Hutchins, was with him. The man's face was carved from granite. Mr. Rivera, Officer Hutchins said stiffly, my son has something to say. Brandon couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. I'm sorry. For all of it. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. Tyler and Kayla arrived 20 minutes later with their parents in tow. The conversations were brief, humiliating for the teenagers, and exactly as painful as Marcus had intended. He laid out the work schedule, every Saturday and Sunday for the next month, 8 hours a day. They'd restain his deck under his supervision. They'd repair the fence, they'd clean the pool and surrounding area. They'd pay $1,800 in cash for professional repairs to the LED system. Money they'd earn by selling gaming systems, getting part-time jobs, or however else they needed to scrape it together. And Marcus would inspect every inch of work, rejecting anything substandard. The first weekend was brutal. Marcus woke them at dawn, handed them paint scrapers and sandpaper, and watched as they learned what real work felt like. The July heat was merciless. By noon, all three were sunburned and exhausted. Marcus brought them water. He wasn't a monster, but no sympathy. When Brandon tried, but the real turning point came on the second Sunday. A neighbor, Margaret Chen from 2 houses down, walked by during her morning constitutional. She stopped, staring at the scene of 3 teenagers working under Marcus's watchful eye. Marcus, what's going on? Marcus explained calmly. Everything. The 8 weeks of violations. The police in action. the trap he'd set. Mrs. Chen's eyes went wide, then hard. Those are the kids? The ones who've been doing this? The very same. Mrs. Chen pulled out her phone. My grandson's on the school board. And I know someone at the daily local news. She snapped several photos of the sheepish teenagers. This is exactly the kind of story people need to hear. Kids thinking they can do whatever they want without consequences. Marcus hadn't planned for this, but he didn't stop her either. By Monday afternoon, the story had hit the local Facebook groups. By Tuesday, the daily local news ran a feature. Local man uses tech skills to catch teen trespassers, makes them pay. By Wednesday, a local TV station had picked it up. And by Friday, the story had gone genuinely viral. TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, everywhere Marcus looked, he saw variations of the headline. Cybersecurity experts' perfect revenge on pool-crashing teens. The comments were universally supportive. This is how you parent. Actions have consequences. Finally. Get wrecked, entitled kids. The story resonated because it touched something raw in people. Frustration with systems that didn't protect them. With entitled youth who'd never faced real accountability. With the powerlessness of being victimized in your own home. For Brandon, Tyler, and Kayla, the viral attention was devastating in ways Marcus hadn't entirely anticipated. Their names weren't in the news stories, legal protections for minors, but everyone in Maple Ridge knew exactly who they were. The story ripped through the high school like wildfire. Tyler lost his position on the skateboarding team. Kayla's volleyball captain status was suspended pending review. Brandon's Westchester walk-on opportunity evaporated after a recruiter saw the viral stories and connected dots. But something else happened, too. On the fourth weekend, as the teenagers worked in grim silence, Kayla stopped sanding and looked up at Marcus. Can I ask you something? Marcus, who'd been reviewing security footage on his tablet, nodded. Go ahead. Why didn't you just send the emails? You could have destroyed us on day one. Why give us the chance to fix it? Marcus considered the question. Because I wanted you to understand something that a criminal record wouldn't teach you. I wanted you to feel what it's like to fix what you've broken. To understand that the person you're hurting isn't some abstract concept. It's a real human being who worked hard for something you treated like garbage. A criminal record would have just made you victims in your own minds. This way, you have to own what you did. Tyler, who'd been listening, spoke up quietly. My dad said you could have sued us for way more than $4,200. He said property damage plus emotional distress could have been 20 grand easy. Your dad's right. I lowered it to what you could actually pay because I don't want to ruin your lives. I want to teach you something. Marcus gestured at the nearly completed deck. You three are smart enough to break into someone's property repeatedly without getting caught by police. That means you're smart enough to learn from this. Question is whether you will. Brandon, silent until now, set down his paint roller. I blamed you at first. Thought you were just some angry old guy who couldn't take a joke. But my dad? He paused, swallowing hard. My dad hasn't spoken to me except to tell me what an embarrassment I am. He's a cop, and his son is the criminal everyone's talking about. I see what I did now. I see who I hurt. The work was completed on August 10th, exactly 32 days after the confrontation. Marcus inspected every inch of the deck, every board of the fence, every corner of the pool area. The teenagers stood in a line, anxious, as he made his final assessment. The deck was perfect, better than it had been originally. The fence repairs were professional quality. The pool sparkled. Marcus turned to face them. You made my life hell for 8 weeks. You laughed when I asked you to stop. You mocked me, vandalized my property, and treated me like I didn't matter. I'm not going to lie and say I forgive you. That's not something you get to ask for. But you've completed the terms. The emails will never send. As far as I'm concerned, this is over. Kayla surprised him by extending her hand. Thank you for not destroying us. I know we deserved it. And I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Her handshake was firm. Tyler and Brandon followed suit. There was no friendship here, no heartwarming reconciliation, but there was something. Acknowledgement. Understanding. A lesson learned the hardest possible way. 2 months later, on a perfect October evening, Marcus floated in his pool as the sun set behind his oak trees. The water was precisely 82 degrees. His LED lights cycled through gentle blues and purples. The deck gleamed with fresh stain. Everything was exactly as it should be. His phone buzzed with a notification. Another news outlet wanted to interview him about the viral story. He deleted it. The revenge had been satisfying, but the peace was better. His neighbor, Margaret Chen, called over the fence. "Looking good over there, Marcus." "Thanks to some involuntary labor," Marcus called back with a smile. "I saw Kayla at the grocery store yesterday. She looked right at me and waved. Even apologized for everything. That girl's going to be okay." Marcus nodded, sipping his drink. He'd learned something, too, through all this, that sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom or a police report. Sometimes it comes from refusing to be a victim and making people face exactly what they've done. The viral fame had been an unexpected bonus, a public validation that he'd done the right thing. But the real victory was simpler. His pool was his again. His sanctuary was restored. And 3 teenagers somewhere in Maple Ridge had learned that the quiet guy next door might just be the most dangerous person they ever cross. As the stars began to appear overhead, Marcus closed his eyes and smiled. Because justice, whether it goes viral or stays private, is equally satisfying when it's earned. Across the country in Sedona, Arizona, retired trauma surgeon Dr. Vivian Cross was reviewing security footage of her neighbor's Doberman destroying her meditation garden for the 3rd time this month. The HOA president, who happened to own the dog, had just informed her that breed-specific complaints weren't covered under community rules. Dr. Cross set down her tablet and smiled. The same controlled smile she'd worn in operating rooms when everyone thought the patient couldn't be saved. "I appreciate you clarifying the rules," she said softly, pulling out the county health code manual she'd spent the last week memorizing. "Because I think you'll find section 4.7.2 regarding animal waste contamination is very specific about legal liability, particularly when the property owner is also the HOA president who's supposed to enforce those rules." The president's face went white.